Agency, reporting to you on the venue of the Summer Devils 2018. And today we are very honored to have invited Jean-Pierre Bourguignon, Professor Bourguignon, President of the European Research Council, and also a renowned scientist himself. So welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah. So today we'll be talking about, broadly on various subjects on science. But first of all, I would like to introduce to the audience maybe a little bit about this institution, the European Research Council, the ERC, what it's been doing, how many scientists has it been founded, and how much money has it granted to those scientists?
Okay. Very good question. So the European Research Council is a program of the European Union. You know, the European Union has a so-called framework program which lasts 7 years to support science, to support research and innovation. And the European Research Council was created in 2007, so we are in the 11th year of existence of ERC. It has been funding so far more than 8,500 scientists for quite long-term action, that is typically 5 years grants. And the amount of money which has been spent is 13 billion euro,
wow,
which is a significant amount. And now typically the annual budget is over 2 billion euro, and we give every year now more than 1,000 grants. So of course by Chinese standards it's a small number, but for European standards it's a very significant number.
I'm curious that by what criterion do you grant those funds?
Well, first of all, we do cover all kinds of sciences, that is physics, engineering, mathematics, chemistry, and life sciences, but also social sciences, humanities. And the only criteria we use is scientific quality, and the people know that they really have to come up with an ambitious project to come to us. The competition is very tough. It's typically at the moment 12% success rate, which means many people submit but are not funded. But people now know that because of this level of competition, they really cannot be just business as usual. It has to be really something with a real ambition.
So how many grantees are Chinese?
Well, Chinese, as you know, one of the constraints to get a grant is that people must be affiliated for at least half of their time with a European institution.
Oh.
So the number of Chinese supported so far is 35, which is a very, very small number compared to 8,500. But if you look at the number of Chinese who are working in teams, that is because when people get this money, of course, it's to pursue a very specific project, but of course they need to build a team to really achieve the goal. And Chinese, there are more than 800 Chinese funded by ERC actually, not as principal investigator, but as participating in the teams. So it's a very significant number. I mean, it's actually China is number one country from nationality of people working in teams.
Oh, really? So why were on this subject with the people of Chinese nationalities?
Well, 35 is huge diversity. I mean, there are people in computer science, there are people also in actually social science humanities related to China actually. There are also people in life sciences, quite a number of people in life sciences actually. So quite huge diversity as the ERC is supporting people with great diversity. We brought here with us 11 grantees from ERC who are here in the forum. So it's interesting, again, diversity. We had a special session on a special press conference on the impact of food on health, and 3 grantees who spoke, 3 women actually, were really looking at this question of the impact of quality of food on health from many different, 3 different, really different angles. So it was very interesting.
While we were talking about scientists from China, I couldn't help but notice that there are many Nobel laureates of Chinese origin, but not so many from of Chinese nationality. Why do you think it happened this way?
Well, I think first of all, the Nobel Prize has been established for quite some time. At the time where China had very good people, but not good number now. So of course, if you look at the development of science in China in recent years, has been amazing. Not only in terms of quantity, but also in terms of quality. I'm a mathematician, so I could witness what's happening in mathematics, and really now it's very, very impressive. I lectured at Nankai University on Monday here during this visit, and really extremely good question from students, and more than 100 students listening to my lecture, but really very, very good question. So I think the move forward of China is of course very visible in terms of equipment and so on, but there is more than that. It's a new ambition and the younger generation very motivated. So I think this is the transformation.
So you're talking about you as a mathematician.
Yes.
I heard that in early days you had an encounter with Xinxin Chen,
Yes, sure.
Chinese American.
Actually, I owe quite a bit to him, and really because first of all, it was exactly my field. But there's an anecdote I always quote, which for me actually it was very important, at least on my psychology. I was at that time visiting in the US. I was actually visiting Stanford, and I was very early in my career, so it was the summer of 1973. And I got a phone call from Chern, and he said, I would like that you come and have lunch with me. And for me, the idea that although I was still a very, very young mathematician, Chern wanted to talk to me was very, very special. And so actually, really in terms of my self-confidence, it was very, very important. And he has been always so nice to me, and that's why I've been visiting Nankai very often, because you know there's a Chern Institute here at Nankai University, because after his retirement from Berkeley, he really settled here and really developed a remarkable institute. And but also he was really a very important figure in terms of defining what was the important development in my field. He was also really the advisor to Yao Xingtung, who is the Chinese who got the Fields Medal, who actually, my first position in the US was in Stony Brook, and Yao was coming for the first time. That was his first position too. And we worked together, we published together at that time, and we became very good friends. And so it was also that was through Chern in the sense, because Chern was the advisor of Yao Xingtung.
Yeah, I would like to go to the topic of the current scientific research.
Yes.
As a mathematician and also the president of the URC, how do you see the relationship between applied research and also the frontier research?
Well, I think one has to be very careful, I would say, because in recent years, I think the distance between basic research and applied research has really been transformed. That is, a number of, I tend to call them short circuits happen. That is, things which a new concept, a new, really totally new area develops with quite immediate connection. A good example of this is graphene. You've probably heard about this new material, which is a very one layer of atoms, which really create carbon atoms, which creates a new material which has very, very specific property, extremely strong mechanical properties, extremely special electric, very low resistance, and therefore, between the discovery of graphene and the possible application, there were just 10 years. And usually, I mean, if you have really a discovery of something very substantial from the intellectual point of view, it takes quite longer time. But in recent years, in many different areas, there have been really this kind of short circuits. Another very good example is this new technology, gene editing technology, which is called CRISPR-Cas9. And the same, it was more or less people got an idea they could be interesting in the late 80s. Then in the 90s, people started to study it systematically. And then in the early 2000s, people really understood it could be a fantastically efficient gene editing process. And really it went from very basic chemistry, where people didn't understand the process and wanted to understand it, with no idea of application whatsoever. And then now it's really widespread use in so many areas of biology because it's so precise, so easy, so systematic. So I think one has to rethink this relation. That's why in the case of ERC, for us we are really focusing on frontier research, and we don't want to make a distinction between basic, applied, or even technological research. We just welcome everything. The truth of the matter at the moment is that the balance, although there is not a choice, it's just if you take a snapshot of what we do, 85% is basic research, 15% is applied research. But there is no, maybe this will move, and actually very often we see researchers who start with a completely basic science idea, and in the end file patents. And they never thought they would ever file a patent when they started the project. And we made that, ERC made that easier by creating what we call a proof of concept, which is a small amount of additional money we provide the researchers with if they see the possibility of getting closer to the market, or closer to societal needs, so that we accompany them a little bit to get to this stage. Although it's totally at their initiative, we don't press them. It's just, and at the moment we are close to 1,000 proof of concept, so it's a significant. So typically 10% of our grants actually are accompanied by this. Again, totally at the initiative of researchers.
But other than the framework of URC, do you see there's a market-driven formula on the horizon to provide incentive for basic research?
Well, first of all, most funding agencies or most funding programs, like the one with the European Commission, the present one is called Horizon 2020. These programs definitely have components which are really top-down, which are priorities which are set, and with the idea of really connecting to markets. And so I'm completely comfortable with the idea. I think the right issue is to find a good balance between the two. But what is the most difficult part in the sense is for governments, they are very often so eager to get very quick results that for them they want to tell people what to do. This is not the way research is functioning. So I think I fully understand the need to have targeted research, but you need to have enough space for completely blue sky, curiosity-driven research. And fortunately, the ERC is one such example. There are others, but this one is, and we are at the moment 17% of the overall program of the European Union for support of research and innovation, which I think is we're always dreaming for more, but it means that you can really do significant things.
Yeah, so let's go to the topic of the fourth industrial revolution.
Yes.
This idea was proposed by Professor Klaus Schwab, but I think this definition, the nature of this word, is still open for debate. So what do you think is the key technology that has shaped the world landscape in the past 10 years, and what will be the key technology in the next 10 years?
Well, I think the world is discovering, the many sides of internet and the communication and the access of data and so on. So definitely the occurrence and the use and also the organization of big data is becoming the main thing. And actually, because of this development, which was not available before, it has changed completely. So this, for me, this is really has been the main driver of change in the last 10 years. But if you look into the future, and you offer me the opportunity to look at the fourth industrial revolution, I think it will be, and it was this change in artificial intelligence, where instead of having completely, I would say, algebraically or very linearly driven consequences of a program of algorithms, was really to base some algorithm on the use of big data. So this shift, which was not obvious when artificial intelligence started, people were not thinking in those terms. And so now the new feature is really that people have understood that using data, you can really make a number of systems truly efficient. Of course, with a small part of uncertainty, because you are just using data. And also you have to be careful, you're using past data, and sometimes you want to identify a trend. So how do you do that? It gets more subtle. That's why artificial intelligence requires still a huge amount of research. But I think the main driver for the fourth industrial revolution will be artificial intelligence. And probably one thing one has to really be conscious of is the fact that for this new industrial revolution, probably the impact on the organization of society, organization of jobs, organization of production will be quite massive. So if the society doesn't anticipate properly the social consequences of the massive use of artificial intelligence, that is new definitions of jobs, or some jobs which will just disappear because they'll be replaced by a system, one has to be very careful, because I think also there are some ethical dimension to that, because so all this probably will be the driver, which means still a lot of research to be done. Probably on this industry side, really a redefinition of the profiles of people you employ, or also the functions, who decides what. Because if you put things too much automatic, at some point you lose control, so you still want to keep control. So I think probably this will be the driver.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of the artificial intelligence, people are always talking about this possibility of AI dominating humans. Do you think it is possible that years from now that people's instinct to pursue knowledge will be counterproductive or devastating in some way?
Well, it's always difficult to be sure of anything in these areas, but I don't believe in it. I think I see the remarkable possibilities which go with that, but still, I mean, as a mathematician, mathematicians are very often considered as people who compute. Actually, I do compute from time to time, but this is not the main part of my work. The main part of my work is really developing new concepts, bringing together ideas, domains which before were totally foreign to one another. So I think still, for me, I mean, the concepts are so important over numbers or calculations that I think this will remain. So, and extrapolating from my own field, I think still the contribution of the people, that is the people who come up with a new vision. For example, for mathematics, one thing what we have seen over the years is that the history of mathematics is very often to realize that things which people consider different were actually the same object. So if you understand it at a certain depth, you realize that when you were talking about this, when you were talking about that, actually it's the same thing, because it has the same structure, which is very important. And then, from the moment, I don't see machines being able to do that. So, for me, because it has been the history of my own discipline, that the contribution, the great contribution to mathematics, have been definitely people bringing up this kind of there is a wonderful formula by Henri Poincaré, which is to do mathematics is to give the same name to different things. Which of course you do that if you have realized that they are actually the same thing. But these days you can really completely understand them in the same way.
I would like to conclude the interview with a more philosophical and abstract question. What do you think is the ultimate purpose of science?
Well, the ultimate purpose of science for me is very simple. It's to understand the world around us, and people are part of the world, and humans are part of the world, so we need to understand humans and the world better. That's the purpose of science.
Not to make the world a better place, just to understand.
Well, you have to be careful, because of course, unless you have understood the world at a certain level, then the responsibility of making the world better is a different responsibility in understanding the world. And of course, the people who are involved in that are not just the scientists, but everybody. Because science creates possibilities, but you can also use this possibility badly or positively. And this is really a responsibility of the whole society. But of course, science should fight for a better world. But it's the responsibility of everybody.
Okay, thank you for your answer. So this is so much for today's live show, and thank you for joining us today, Monsieur Bouguignon. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and there will be further talk shows in the following days. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your invitation.
Welcome guys, thank you for joining our today's live show. This is Zhe Yu from Xinhua News Agency, reporting to you on the venue of the Summer Devils 2018. And today we are very honored to have invited Jean-Pierre Bouguignon, Professor Bouguignon, President of the European Research Council, and also a renowned scientist himself. So welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Yeah. So.